afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Bills versus the Dolphins. Let's start off with the home team, the Buffalo Bills. Everybody's firing up Josh Allen. He's an absolute beast, one of the best quarterbacks this year. Moving on to the wide receivers, you're firing up Stephon Diggs. You're absolutely firing up Emmanuel Sanders. If you don't know this, Emmanuel Sanders has been the 13th best wide receiver in the last 5 weeks. Stephon Diggs is 26. Fire up Emmanuel Sanders this week. I even think you can start up Cole Beasley. The Bills are 13.5-point favorites. I definitely think there's going to be some points scored for the Bills. Moving on to the running back position, I actually think you can play both running backs, but I prefer Zach Moss. I see both of them as a flex play, but if I had to pick one, Zach Moss is going to be that guy. Moving on to the tight end position, unfortunately, the late round darling, Dawson Knox, has been injured. He's not going to be playing in this game, and I'm not going to start a backup tight end. Sweeney as a flyer if you're desperate, but I prefer to look somewhere else. Moving on to the defense, yes. Kicker, yes. On to the Miami Dolphins. You're not starting Tua, even though he played solid last week. Wide receivers, I'm only starting Jalen Waddle if you need him. I have him as a flex play with upside. Moving on to the running back. The Dolphins are projected to be down in this game, so I think you can start up Myles Gaskin if you need him. But I have him as a flex play. He makes me very nervous. The Bills' defense is pretty fire, so start him with caution. Moving on to the tight end position, Mike Gesicki has been playing out of his mind. Fire him up. He's a start every week at this point. And no to the defense, no to the kicker. That's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this episode. Let's move on to Pigskin Pick'em. The Bills are 13.5-point favorites in this game, and I'm going to go with the Bills. They're at home, they're better, and I just think they take care of business. The Dolphins don't scare me and they don't give me confidence, so I think the Bills should be able to take care of this. So that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Happy Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Atlanta Falcons versus the Carolina Panthers. We're going to start off with the home team, the Falcons. I think if you're desperate, you can start Matt Ryan. This isn't a terrible matchup. I think if you need him, you can throw him in there. Moving on to the wide receiver position, you're firing up Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver too, and I think you can play Russell Gage as a flex play. He's not one of my favorite picks of the week, but if you're desperate, I think he can play him. Moving on to the running back position, Mike Davis, no thank you. He's been playing terribly so far, but you can fire up Cordell Patterson. Looks like a coach finally figured out how to use him. Moving on to the tight end position, Kyle Pitts is finally breaking out. You fire that guy up every week. He's an absolute beast. No to the defense, yes on the kicker. If you need a kicker, I think you can fire him up. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers. Sam Darnold absolutely crushed me last week. I lost my fantasy matchup by 1 because Sam Darnold had 2 points. Trash. I won't be starting this week, but I think that it's not a bad matchup, so if you need to, fine, you can start him. I'm not. Moving on to the wide receiver position, DJ Moore is the only wide receiver that we're going to be looking at this week because for some reason the Panthers decided to pay Robbie Anderson and not get him the ball. Well, I guess they're getting him the ball, he's just not catching it and doing anything with it. So, no thank you to Robbie Anderson. Moving on to the running back position, unfortunately, the number 1 pick this year is still out. So, with Christian McCaffrey out, slide in Chuba Hubbard. I think he'll be a fine start this week. Running back 2, flex play with upside. Tight end, no. Defense, yes. I do think you can play the defense. The Panthers defense has been really good this year. So the offense has been having the problem. So I think you can fire them up. That's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this episode. Moving on to Pigskin Pick'em. The Falcons are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Falcons at home. I think the Falcons should be able to take care of business. I like their offense. Their defense is kind of leaky, but I do think that Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley should be able to get it done. And plus, Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback. Ugh, driving me nuts. He played great with Christian McCaffrey and terrible without him. He is on my no playlist until McCaffrey gets back, and even then, he's going to have to prove it. So that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the San Francisco 49ers versus the Chicago Bears. Bears. Let's start off with the home team, the Chicago Bears. You're not starting Justin Fields. He's played terrible so far this year. Moving on to the wide receiver position, unfortunately, Allen Robinson has been playing terrible, but there's a chance that he may get traded. Keep him on your roster, but you may not want to start him. Unfortunately, Darnell Mooney might be the best wide receiver, and I have him as a low-end flex play. San Francisco's been pretty solid on defense. Moving on to the running back position. Khalil Herbert's been playing great these last couple weeks. He's been top 12 the last 2 weeks. Hopefully you grabbed him when I suggested him on the waiver wire. If you did, good job. If not, maybe next time. I definitely think you can fire him up as a running back 2 flex play. Moving on to the tight end, no. Defense, yes. San Francisco doesn't really scare me. They had a lot of turnovers last week. I know it was raining, but it looked ugly. Kicker, no. Moving on to the San Francisco 49ers. You're not starting a quarterback in this one, not Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance. Jimmy GQ looked terrible, not looks-wise, but football-wise, it was bad. It was bad. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Deebo Samuel's the wide receiver you want to start in this matchup. He's been playing out of his mind this year, but he's a little dinged up. Deebo Samuel's one of those people you're going to have to monitor because his injuries tend to linger and he's not a fast healer. So watch out for that. If he's healthy, fire him up. He's an absolute beast. And at the running back position, Elijah Mitchell's been playing great. I think you fire him up. Kyle Shanahan knows how to use his running backs. And right now, Elijah Mitchell's the man. So get him in that lineup. Moving on to the tight end position, George Kittle is unfortunately still out on IR, but I do believe there's a chance he comes back next week, so keep an eye on him for next week. Fire up the 49ers defense. The Bears have been playing terrible, and Justin Fields is not pro-ready yet. So I think that defense should be pretty fire, and you can play the kicker if you want. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Moving on to Pigskin Pick'em. The 49ers are 3.5-point favorites in this matchup. Give me the 49ers. The Bears just don't make me very confident, to be honest with you. They've been playing pretty bad. The 49ers didn't have a great game last week, but I think they're better all around. So I'm going to go with the 49ers to cover the 3.5. And that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Happy Halloween and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's start off with the home team, the Cleveland Browns. At quarterback position, you're not starting Baker Mayfield. He's dinged up, and I don't want to deal with that. Moving on to the wide receivers, I don't want to start any of them. They're all injured and not looking good. And Baker's injured. Moving on to the running back position, Nick Chubb is back, baby. I think you can fire him up as a running back too. I'm a little nervous from him being right back from injury, but I do think if you have him, you're going to play him. Dearness Johnson, I think, is going to be a low-end flex play with upside. The Steelers' run defense is incredible. You pass against this team, not run. But the Browns love to run the ball, so something's got to give. We'll see this weekend. Moving on to the tight end, no. Kicker, no. Defense, yes. I definitely think you can play the Browns defense against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They haven't really looked too great, and I think that the Browns defense is actually pretty solid. Moving on to the Steelers. You're not starting Big Ben. Moving on to the wide receivers. Deontay Johnson is the wide receiver that you want. You fire him up every week. Moving on to Chase Claypool. I think this is a solid matchup for Chase Claypool. This guy's big, strong, and fast. I think he's one big play away from having a great game. Moving on to the running back position, you're starting Najee Harris every single week. This man's a beast. Moving on to the tight end, no. Defense, yes. You can definitely play the defense against the Browns. The Browns are injured. That's what you're looking for in the defense. And the Steelers' defense is pretty solid. Against the run, they're not great against the pass. But Baker's hurt, right? So, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this game. On to Pigskin Pick'em. The Browns are 3.5-point favorites in this matchup. Honestly, I have it more as a toss-up, but if I had to choose, which I do, I'm going to go with the Browns for 3.5 points. They're at home, and I like their defense a little better, so I'm going to go with the home team. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Have a great Halloween, and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Rams versus the Texans. Let's start off with the home team, the Texans. This one's going to be quick. I'm not starting anybody from the Texans unless you're talking about Brandon Cooks, and even he is a flex play. I'm not excited about it. You're going to have Jalen Ramsey most likely on him, and the quarterback is not playing great, so I really don't think the Texans have anybody of value at the moment that you're going to want to start up. Mark Ingram did get traded, so keep an eye on David Johnson, though. I wouldn't play him, but you could pick him up as a speculative ad to see how he does in the next couple weeks. Moving on to the Rams. Fire up Matthew Stafford. He's an absolute beast. And the Texans are terrible. Moving on to the wide receivers, I definitely think you're going to start up Cooper Kupp. You can start Robert Woods as well. I don't think he has as much upside because I don't think this is going to be a back and forth affair. They shouldn't be scoring a bunch of points. So it's going to be more of a run game than a pass game, but Cooper Kupp always gets his. Moving on to the running back position, Darrell Henderson's going to have a great game. The Rams are going to be up pretty much the whole time, and when you're up, you run the ball. I think you fire him up this week and for the rest of the year, excluding that bye week. Moving on to the tight end position, I think you can fire up Tyler Higbee as well. He's going to get involved, and he has a nose for the end zone from time to time, so that's what you're looking for a tight end. I think you fire him up. Moving on to the defense, they're going to be one of the best defenses of the week. Fire up that defense, and you play the kicker. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Moving on to Pigskin Pick'em. The Rams are 14.5-point favorites, but I still got to go with the Rams. I just think that they're going to destroy them. The Rams are going to mop the floor with the Texans, and I don't think garbage time is going to be enough to get them back in this game. So I'm going with the Rams. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups, and happy Halloween, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start off with the home team, the Detroit Lions. Starting with the quarterback, you're not starting Jared Goff, so on to the wide receivers. You're not starting the wide receivers, so on to the running backs. I definitely think you fire up DeAndre Swift. He's been playing great so far this year, and he has a fine matchup against Philadelphia. I also think you can start Jamal Williams as a flex play if you need him. Like I said before, you're not starting the wide receivers, so the running backs are going to get some work. Moving on to the tight end position, I think you can fire up TJ Hawkinson. If you're not throwing it to the wide receivers, you're probably throwing it to the running backs and tight ends. So fire up Hawkinson. I think he has a solid week this week. Moving on to the defense, no kicker, no. On to Philadelphia. You're firing up Jalen Hurts every week. If you're watching the games, you're probably upset until the very end. He has looked terrible, but that's real football. This is fantasy football. And Jalen Hurts gets it done at the end of games. He is the king of garbage time right now, so fire him up. If you don't like it, just don't watch the games. He's going to get you the points regardless. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I think you can fire up Devonta Freeman. I think it's a solid week. You're going against the Lions. They really don't scare you. I have him as a flex play this week. Moving on to the running back position, and unfortunately, Miles Sanders is injured right now. The team put him on IR. That means Kenneth Gainwell is the man. Fire up Kenneth Gainwell as a running back too this week. And if you're desperate, I do think you can play Boston Scott. I believe he's going to get more involved with Miles Sanders out, but there's a chance that Jordan Howard gets involved as well. So this is kind of up in the air. It's a little riskier. I think Kenneth Gainwell's the play, but if you're desperate, Boston Scott might get a couple points. Moving on to the tight end position, Zach Ertz is out of here, and Dallas Goedert is the man by himself. I think you can fire him up. He's going to have a much better year this year now that Zach Ertz is gone. He's going to get more targets, and more targets, it's more production. Moving on to the defense, no kicker, no. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this game. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites in this matchup. And I'm going with the Lions. I think that this is the Lions' best chance to have a win this year. I don't know if they win, but I think they cover the 3.5-point spread. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Happy Halloween, everybody. Stay safe out there. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Colts versus the Titans. Let's start off with that home team, the Colts. I think Carson Wentz is a fine start in this matchup. The Titans don't scare me. And Carson Wentz has been a top 10 quarterback in the last 3 weeks, so I think you can play him in this matchup. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Michael Pittman Jr. is slowly becoming the lead dog in this offense. That's what I'm talking, man. Going up, mossing these boys. Keep it up, Pittman. I think you can fire him up this week. I actually think he's a great play. Jonathan Taylor's been playing incredible so far this year. I definitely think you fire him up every week. I'm not trying to start their tight end, but if you're desperate at tight end, Mo Cox could always fall into the end zone. No to the defense. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill, I think, will be a fine start in this matchup. Spoiler alert, they don't have Julio Jones this week, but I still think that Ryan Tannehill can get it done with his legs as well as throwing it to A.J. Brown. Speaking of A.J. Brown, moving on to wide receivers, he's the top dog in the receiving core for this offense. You fire him up every single week. Like I said earlier, Julio Jones is going to be out, so make arrangements, slide him to your IR and pick up somebody else because you won't have him this week. Moving on to the running back position, everybody starts Derrick Henry every single week. He's a beast. Fire him up. No to the tight end, no to the kicker. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin to Pick 'em. The Titans are 1.5-point favorites in this matchup, and I think they get it done. Yes, I know they don't have Julio Jones, but they've won games without Julio. As long as you have Derrick Henry, you always got a shot. I think the Tennessee Titans take this one down. They're 5-2. They're looking pretty good. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups this week. Happy Halloween, and stay safe, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Bengals versus the Jets. Let's start off with that home team, the Jets. Unfortunately, Zach Wilson got injured last week. It's not season ending, but he won't be in this game. And you're definitely not starting to back up. On to the wide receivers. I'm honestly fading all of them. I'd prefer to start none of them. The quarterback's got a tough matchup, and I don't believe in him. Hard pass on the quarterback, hard pass on the receivers. Moving on to the running back position. Michael Carter is a flex play at best. Not excited about it, but he should get some reception, so I think you can fire him up as a flex play. No to the tight end, no to the defense, no to the kicker. Moving on to the Bengals. Whereas you were starting almost nobody with the Jets, you're starting almost everybody with the Bengals. Starting off with the quarterback position. Joe Burrow's an automatic start. The Jets are trash, and Joe Burrow's been playing pretty great this year. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Jamar Chase has been as great as advertised. You fire him up every week. T. Higgins is pretty solid. I think he's more of a wide receiver too. And Tyler Boyd is a flex play. I don't know how much they're going to need to throw in this game. I actually think it's going to be more of a running game, to be honest with you. Speaking of running, moving on to those running backs. And Joe Mixon's absolute start this week. The Jets suck, and they're going to run the ball down their throats. I actually even think you could probably start Samaje Perine as a flex play if you're desperate. The Jets are bad. Bengals are going to be up. Fire up your running backs. Moving on to the tight end position, CJ Uzomah has had some great weeks this year. I definitely think you could play him. It's not going to be a big back and forth affair, but there's always a chance he gets in the end zone, and for a tight end, that's what you're looking for. Moving on to the defense, yes, fire him up. And the kicker, yeah, because they're going to score a bunch of points. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Moving on to the Pigskin Pick'em. The Bengals are 10.5-point favorites in this matchup, and I'm going with the Bengals. The Jets are terrible. They lost their quarterback. Now they're even worse. The Bengals actually look good. The Bengals have won some games that a lot of people didn't project for them to win. This game isn't one of them. They're going to destroy the Jets. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchup this week, and have fun on Halloween. Stay safe. Peace.